Hey guys, it's Saf coming at you with another Raid Shadow Legends video. So today we're going to be looking at an important debuff that you're going to need to bring for the new dungeon Al-Naima, the Sand Devil. That is coming sometime in the next couple of weeks. It may even be sooner. I mean, they've put the patch highlights out now, so pretty much it could even come straight after CVC on Thursday, which is normally kind of the window. It's like about a couple of days before. What we need to know about Al-Naima is unless you sleep the target, you cannot do anything, which means we now need to look at bringing a sleep champion into our teams, which is something we probably have never done before because sleep is generally a bad debuff. Now, there are only 33 individual effects in the game that can apply a sleep debuff out of about 700 different champions and about 1,500 to 2,000 skills. So it's actually quite a limited pool of champions, and many of the champions that we would normally use for sleep are actually conditional to the point where they won't work in this new dungeon. For example, just on handy note here, we can have a look at one champion that does a sleep, which is Allure. Allure will place a sleep on the A2, but she has to do it on targets under decreased defense. Well, until you sleep the target, you cannot debuff Al-Naima, the new boss. So this isn't going to work for the new boss dungeon. The same thing for our other sort of sleep conditional champion on an epic level, which is Tyrell. Tyrell will sleep any target if they're under decrease attack. Well, that's not going to be possible. So we need champions that can reliably sleep, and we need these champions to do it on a regular basis. So that is what we're going to be looking at today. Sort of the best sleep options you can use for this dungeon. So before we get into that, we have got a provisional guide up on hellhades.com. We are going to be working through this guide over time, as you can imagine. We haven't got it live yet, so this is based on information that we know from different various sources. And obviously from the video that we have pulled out. So we're just looking at, obviously the skills have been written up here, so you can use this as a reference point if you want to remember what the boss does and how it works in any way. And we've kind of got some initial ideas from looking at the videos and kind of just looking at it to see how are we going to beat this boss. What do you need? There's some provisional sort of teams down here, some ideas to give you some sort of thought about how to beat the boss, although this is likely to change quite a lot as it goes live, as we look at different things. We obviously don't know the stats yet until it goes live. We won't be able to do anything like that, but we are hearing from content creators that stage 25 is going to be a very, very difficult stat burden. If you want to go check out the guide, it is in the website, it is on the menu. Go have a look, the Al-Naima guide. It will be updated as we get the stats, as it goes live, as we understand more and more about this boss. We need to bring a sleep champion. Let's have a look at the best options available to you. The first one that will probably be on most people's list are going to be Siphi, the Lost Bride. Obviously, we know Siphi has this ability with Rotus in terms of a passive, the cleanse, single target revive. We get block debuffs, increased defense, increased speed. But the A1 is where the sleep comes in. If you've ever faced Siphi in an arena, you know this ability is really, really frustrating. And people have even took the mastery to give you block debuffs to try and stop this chain sleeping from happening. But she has a 100% chance to place sleep if the target's turn meter is above 50%, and she can do it without accuracy, which probably will be quite handy. Now, you only have a 50% of the turn meter window to be able to do this, so trying to maximize the value is going to be a lot harder with Siphi. But in terms of a sleep ability, there is not much better in the game other than 100% guaranteed unresistible sleep on an A1. And that is what Siphi the Lost Bride brings you. Next up, we have another Void Legendary, and this one's more of a recent Void Legendary. He is I think, Skinwalker or Lizardman. I've always mixed these two. A Lizardman. Chagor. Now, Chagor's ability was basically designed to be a constant perma sleep. We all know that sleep is kind of a bit of a rubbish debuff because you do any sort of damage to any target under sleep, whether it's HP burn on another target, they wake up. So what he had was a special passive. Whenever an enemy under one of his poisons would try to take a turn, he would counterattack with his A1, which has a 75% chance when booked of sleeping. So you could get into this chain reaction of once you got the poisons out, he just keeps perma sleeping. It's not 100% like Siphi, but it's a pretty good high chance on an A1. He also brings lots of debuffs. He's got the ability to place a poison debuff here. The second one will place decreased defense. On his A3, he's going to attack one enemy, then attack one times at random. He's going to grant an extra turn if he kills someone. So he's got a lot of opportunities to kind of get poisons out there, although not vast amounts of poisons here. It's a 4-turn duration, but the boss will cleanse this poison, so it can't be relied upon. But if you have Chagor, he may be a good affinity-friendly option for a sleep, even if all you do is A1 with the target although it's not guaranteed. Next up, we go from almost one of the most difficult champions to get to one of the most easiest champions to get, and that is Hellhound. A common champion, which actually is a problem here because you can't put any banners or accessories on common champions. You can't ascend them, which is a bit of an issue. But he has a single ability. That's all he's got. He attacks one enemy. He places asleep if he crits. So as long as he's got 100% crit rate, he's got the required accuracy, he doesn't weak hit, he will place a sleep target. A1, reliable. The issue you're going to have with Hellhound here is he's common. And if the stat burden is too high, you might just struggle to actually build him to be able to do what he needs to do. But otherwise, he's a pretty reliable option here for a sleep target. Next up in the list, we actually have a farmable rare, and I think this farmable rare will probably be the go-to sleep champion for pretty much most people's teams, and that is Muckstalker. He is a lizardman. Muckstalker. He's got two abilities with a cool passive to try and help keep him alive. So if he takes a bit of damage, he's going to give himself continuous heal, which is nice. We've got a single A1 here, which places block debuff. So you're getting a secondary debuff at the same time as the main sleep, which is kind of what you want. We want champions that can do lots of debuffs. That is a 50% chance to attack once, so he's not a multi-hitter. And then finally, we have a 2-turn cooldown, 100% chance to place sleep if the target has no buffs, and the boss doesn't do buffs. So he is probably the best option for this encounter. He's a farmable rare from stage 10 in campaign. I've already done it myself. I went in and farmed it yesterday. In Brutal, if you just go to stage 10 here, if we come out of here, go to stage 10, Godfrey's Crossing. Muckstalker is a farmable rare. Run it 50 times, get your Muckstalker, use some rare books. You have a sleep champion that is reasonably accessible, although you need to make sure you can get back around to that 2-turn cooldown as well. So it's not guaranteed. It's not an A1, but it's a 100% chance on a 2-turn cooldown. You're not going to get much better than that. Next up, we've got a new champion added to the game, and that is Noct the Paralyzer. When we looked at this champion when he first came out, we were basically saying he's an early game poisoner because you basically had lots of poisons with some crowd control for the waves, although the sleep was not great. But now we kind of realize that actually this guy has been designed and purpose built for this new dungeon. How does he work? He's got an A2 sleep with 2 poisons. So that's already 2 debuffs you're putting out whilst you're sleeping. So you're up to 3 debuffs. That's important. He's got this additional thing, places 2 additional poisons whenever a sleep debuff is placed by the skill is removed or disappears after an enemy takes damage. Now, the thing to note here is if he's got a full cleanse, he's not going to be able to replace these poisons because you can't re-sleep. There's an immunity aspect. So this doesn't really work in this boss because the boss needs to be slept in order to debuff him. But the first ability here is great. The next thing you've got is this passive. He's got an ally protection, so it should help keep your team alive. He has continuous heals, so that'll help heal your team. And then you've got whenever an ally is attacked whilst under protection, has a 40% chance to place asleep. So if you've got 5 people on you or 4 people on your team with ally protection, you've got 4 times 40% odds. It's pretty reliable. So you have 2 forms of sleep. You have a decreased accuracy on the A1. You have poison damage and also healing. Noct the Paralyzer is probably one of the best champions for this new dungeon, 100%. Next up, we got some sort of not amazing options, but pretty good options. One option that most people will probably be thinking of and be sitting here by now going, why haven't you talked about him, is Prince Kaimar. Obviously, we know he resets all your abilities. We know he's got a poison on the A1, but he has this full cleanse, then places asleep on a 3-turn cooldown. So 3 turns here is why this is going to be a bit of a problem. Are you going to be able to keep this up all the time? Now, what is quite good is you will fully reset your rotation. The boss on the A2 will cleanse all debuffs. So you have this kind of rotation where you're going to go sleep, debuff him. He then takes a turn after you've hit him 5 times, fully cleanses. You need to restart that process again. With Kaimar, you will get that reset ability. So you can go sleep with his A2, get your debuffs up. The boss wakes up, great. You can reset it, fill the turn meters. You just, unfortunately, he has to be the sleep champion. So the fact he's going to be doing it twice is a bit of an issue. And it's a 3-turn cooldown. So once you get past that rotation, are you going to get back around to that sleep? Probably not. But he is a very, very strong sleep champion. This in the arena is very powerful. Next up, we have a Mad Bomber. Good old Gaius the Gleeful. He is a, where is he? He is a Knight Revenant. He has a 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown also to sleep. He will also place bombs on the champion. So there is a potential we could bomb the Sand Devil, Although bombs in PvE generally aren't nothing to shout home about unless you're putting it on Bommel, where he takes an extra 200% damage. In terms of other parts of his kit, he does have the ability to detonate those bombs, but he is going to attack 2 times here. And we have another double attack on the A1. So he's going to proc the sleep counter a lot more quickly. And we've also got this passive here, which, to be honest, is okay, but the boss isn't sleeping, so you're not going to be able to place this bomb. So it's really about, does this ability have any value? He could be an option for you, but again, would you take him over Muckstalker? Potentially not. We also have another champion which is potentially better than all the ones that we've talked about, although it's a long cooldown, and that is a dwarf, the most weirdest looking champion we've ever seen in the game, probably. It gives me the creeps. She is an epic dwarf champion, and that is Cornelia. YST's little Bommel trick here. She can solo Bommel if you set it up right. Really creepy looking doll animation. But she has this ability where she can place sleep without attacking on a 3-turn cooldown. And whenever an enemy loses sleep, has a 50% chance of replacing it with fear. That won't work, but the main effect here, 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown to sleep. She has this ability to sleep an ally, and then heals that ally by 50% of their max HP and fills their turn meter by 50% whenever the sleep is removed. So obviously if the ally gets attacked, it'll heal. Heals that ally by 100% and completely fills their turn meter if the sleep is lost due to taking damage from an enemy. So you could time this on a 2-turn cooldown to have your re-sleep or have a different ability working. It's got to work on an ally, not herself. So there could be some utility here. And then she attacks one enemy, so she's not going to hit too much of your proc here. This increasing skills cooldown will work. But as a simple 18% aura, non-attackable sleep, so affinity is not an issue, Cornelia might be an option to go to. If you're not looking to go the Muckstalker route, I think it's a very good option. Finally, we have 2 more options that may be of consideration, although I would say that either the RNG is not favorable or they're just not reliable enough. The first option is one of the Barbarian sisters, Maeve. Loves a book. Not as much as her sisters, but she's still a bit of a book heaven friendly. She's got a 70% chance of placing a sleep on an A1. If she places a sleep, she's got a 50-50 chance to grant an extra turn. And that 50% chance kind of lowers her value. At 70%, it's not guaranteed already, but at least it's on an A1. The problem is if she takes an extra turn, she's going to do this ability, which tries to place a stun. Well, you can't stun the boss, he's immune. Or you're going to have this ability which just does damage. So you're not bringing any other debuffs with you. Whereas with Noct, you're bringing poisons. With Muckstalker, you're bringing a block buffs. And he's bringing his own innate healing. He's pretty tanky as well. With this champion here, you're kind of just bringing extra hits. You don't really want that extra turn to proc. But as an A1 sleep option, Maeve is one of the best options out there. She's also good affinity for the higher stages of the new dungeon. Obviously, the top dungeon is Force, which a lot of Magic champions we've just looked at won't work for. And then finally, we've got a champion that everyone can acquire. She is the epic that you get at level 10 on your 3 referral accounts. If you haven't done your referral accounts, you could do this in about an hour with enough sort of ability, knowing how to use blue stacks. I got this in basically 45 minutes when the referral system first came out. She's a pretty interesting champion for this dungeon, although I think her A1 is not reliable enough. She has a 50% chance when booked to sleep a target on an A1, and she has this unique effect with Chronum, although I wouldn't use this with Chronum, to be honest. We then have a single target healed by 30% of their max HP and fills their turn meter by 30%. Again, she has an ability with Chronum. We're not looking at that because I don't think Chronum can fit into your team. And then she has a full turn revive with an ability here, which is like a really weak form of reflex. So let's just talk about the sleep first. 50-50 chance on an A1. If she's going fast enough, maybe okay. But I don't know whether it's going to be reliable enough if the boss is very fast also. We already know he's going to fill 50% of his turn meter. Then you could have a problem that you just can't keep up with the pace of the game. If this is not going to, if you're going to get 2 bad A1s back to back, is it just not reliable enough versus a Muckstalker that's going to guarantee that? So that's the first issue. You can run her as a sort of Stone Skin solution. Put her in Stone Skin, you get your full team revive back. That's how you deal with that initial nuke. The other problem she has is this phasing. It only works when you use the ability. Reflex works whenever my champion takes a turn with Reflex, I have a 40% chance to reduce the cooldown of one of my cooldownable skills if they're on cooldown. So if I'm running an Armiger, if he takes a turn, he's got a 40% chance that A2 gets reduced by 1 turn. The problem with phasing is it's half the opportunity at 20%, and you have to actually use the ability to get that proc. So Armiger will only get the ability proc if he uses A2, and then it's a 20% roll. If he then has to A1, this won't work until he reuses that A2. So the actual uptime of this, even though it's always on, you can get it down to like 0 turn cooldown, it actually doesn't relate anywhere near the value of a reflex set. It's really poor. I know when she came out live, she was bugged. It was like 95%. It was kind of bonkers. I feel like this probably needs to be like 50% because at 20%, it's virtually worthless. I barely see this happening anymore. So that's the two issues with her. She does bring a defense aura, which is quite nice, but she would be the ultra budget option if you don't want to go and get yourself a Muckstalker. It's an A1 sleep. So there you go, guys. That is the end of the video. That is a bit of a short list of the best sleep options for this upcoming dungeon that we're going to have to face. The Devil looks like he's going to be really hard. I'm personally favoring Muckstalker over most things because I think it's just a simple, reliable, it's farmable. You can build him reasonably tanky. You could probably prioritize lots of accuracy into him. He is a rare, so you can ascend him. I think he's probably going to be the best option out of all of these different champions. Maybe we'll get something in the Christmas fusion as well. It's probably going to be a traditional fusion because Christmas fusions normally are traditional. There may be some epic or rare champions that bring sleep that helps us with these options because, to be honest, there are not enough sleep champions for this dungeon right now. There's not a lot of variants. We also know if you ever want to farm stage 25, it is force affinity and Muckstalker is negative affinity. So he doesn't work for the highest stage of the dungeon, which could be a problem. But let me know in the comments below, guys, which champion do you plan on using for your sleep champion? Do you have any other champions that I have not included in this list that you think should be? I will be streaming this probably on Thursday night around about 8 p.m. UK time. If it's out, hopefully it will be. I think Thursday will be patch day because it makes sense. The highlights have come out today. It's 2 days beforehand. If it's live, we'll be streaming, we'll be theory crafting. We will probably be pulling our hair out trying to beat this boss. But I will catch you guys in the next video.